Hello, America. Hello, world. It's June 18th, 2019. On June 18th, 2014, my case was wrongfully dismissed from the United States Appellate Court. My case was Teresa Watson versus East St. Louis School District 189, General Service Employees, Local 382, and Kim Haywood. At the EEOC stage, at the federal court stage, and by the time it made it to the United States Appellate Court, so many parts of it had been wrongfully dismissed. I more than proved my case. I proved that the proper reason was just a pretext for the employment discrimination that was against me. I use exhibits 27 and also 115 to prove my case. Exhibit 27 relates to a judge who worked for the state of Illinois, and it was regarding my unemployment benefits. The judge asked the human resources director the reason for my for the wrongful termination of my employment. And the human resources director said that it was because I refused to go to an unwarranted setting. When asked by the judge for the reason of the unwarranted setting, the human resources director said that it was because of how I was towards a particular female who was a principal, had a title of principal, and also some other staff. And I proved in that hearing and also in Exhibit 27 that I refused the sexual advances of that female and the other females and males that sexually harassed me. I am a lifelong heterosexual female. So once again, I proved using Exhibits 27 and 115 that that I was wrongfully terminated, so I deserved compensation. My case was unfairly dismissed in the federal court. The judge said that I did not speak clearly in one of the hearings at the school district regarding my employment. When my case was on its way to the appellate court, I proved that I did speak clearly in the hearing. I confirmed the testimony that I had to walk away from a person who was my supervisor to try to call for help because they were displaying threatening behavior towards me. So I proved that in my exhibits in the federal court. They were ignored, and the judge brought this unrelated reason saying that I did not speak clearly in one of the hearings at the school district. And I proved that I did by providing an audio on YouTube and then letting the appellate court know that it was available. The appellate court's reason for wrongfully dismissing my case was because I did not pay $505 in order to continue going. I proved through the paperwork that they allowed me to submit that I had been illegally blacklisted. I had no income. I did not have $505. So they were able to waive that fee, but did not. So 5 years later, I'm still due compensation that I more than proved is due to me. Once again, the case was unfairly dismissed from the appellate court on June 18th, 2014. Today is June 18th, 2015. So 5 years later, I'm still keeping hope that I will have justice. Way back on August 11th, August 25th, 2011. August 25th, 2011, there was a civil rights summit held in East St. Louis. And the moderator was U.S. Attorney Stephen Wigington. My case on this particular date was at the EEOC level. We were invited during this summit to pass notes to the moderator. I passed my note to the moderator and I asked for help with Teresa Watson versus East St. Louis School District 189 and Kim Haywood. And the moderator silently read my note and set it aside. I was treated very nicely at the summit. I was invited to go to the back in the reception area and see these people from Washington, D.C., and who attended the summit. I was able to see that party of people be escorted into the building, and I was able to sit very close so I could see behind the podium. My note was just set aside. My case should have been resolved in my favor at the EEOC level. I use this document as Exhibit 1 in my case. On Facebook, I hope that I'll hear from you. Please inbox me to help me to have justice. On Facebook nowadays, you do not see a photo of me. You see this graphic. You see this Civil Rights Summit program that I just showed you, but it has additional text that I've pasted on the program. And the text is an example of me keeping hope alive, where I talk about my case, and a lot of this comes from court documents that I used when my case was alive. So I hope to hear from you on Facebook, Teresa Watson, and then you can look for that graphic. It continues to be reduced, so it's reduced to this level. And if you click on this, it expands just a little bit more. My heart goes out to everybody. I'm a compassionate person. I know that people who are bad can become good. People who have been so good can become bad. So I look forward to justice. I wrote a June 17th, 2015 letter and sent it to pastors who had been appointed to a financial advisory oversight panel over East St. Louis School District 189. So that was a June 17th, 2015 letter that I wrote. And they did not respond. And I talked about it in the strike hearing, which was October of 2015. So I asked them, and I still ask them today for justice. I asked them in that letter to make history and world news, to tell the federal courts, appellate courts, the powers that be, that they did not want the unfairness that they supported by allowing funds to be used or approved to continue my case. It should have been settled in my favor when those two pastors were appointed to the financial advisory panel. My case was about race, religion, retaliation, sexual harassment, and injuries to my hand and foot matters. So, being that these two people that I sent the letter to, and I sent it to some others too, but mainly those, they should understand that, the scriptures relate and say that male, female, husband, wife, boy, girl, I'm not supposed to be sexually attracted to females. So they should quickly come on board and help me to have compensation that was due to me. In the June 17th letter, I mentioned Genesis 19, 1 through 13, to try to help the pastors to quickly um, see things in my favor. So they have not responded, not formally. I've seen them in the meetings back in October, and one of the pastors at another service. Well, the U.S. attorney who was the moderator at that Civil Rights Summit has been in the news for 2 DUIs, recent DUIs. There's a January 17, 2019 Belleville News Democrat article. You can go online and read it. And it talks about ex-wife. The headline says, ex-wife called police to report former U.S. prosecutor driving drunk on New Year's Eve. It says NYE, report says. NYE for New Year's Eve. So my points at this particular time, the different behavior that's shared of in these articles, then this is the top law enforcement for the Southern District of Illinois. So I feel that with this kind of behavior, my case need to quickly be looked over by someone else, and I should be awarded compensation that is due to me. There are other YouTube videos where I talk about all of my exhibits and I ask for justice. So once again, I hope to hear from you on Facebook. Back in November of 2018, I'm happy that a number of political people accepted my friend request, and I hope that this video will encourage you to help. So I'm not looking for any more surveillance. I talk about all the surveillance that I've been under for no reason. And they've been trying to collect different kinds of evidence on me. I talk about all the stings, all the surveillance, and how many years it's been going on, since 2010 for sure. It heightens and lessens. Sometimes it's so extreme. So in this article, I'm not saying this to be harmful, but just to say that my case needs to be looked over by some more just people. And funds, I hope, are immediately given to me. It's 5 years. This is representing like a prayer vigil, this candle here. And this is my sticker from voting. I voted, It would be nice if the pastors, were making efforts to have helping me to have compensation. But here I'm using technology. So here in these articles, it says former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Illinois, Steve Wigington, was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence on December 31st in Edwardsville. It is his second DUI charge in 2 years. So this article is January 17, 2019, from the internet, from the Belleville News Democrat. It says here, former U.S. Attorney Steve Wigington hit another car and attempted to get a hamburger the night he was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence last month. Something else that stood out to me as an officer located Wigington's car in the parking lot of a Sonic restaurant near the intersection of Plummer Drive and Commerce Drive, the arrest report stated. The officer pulled the Jeep over as it left the parking lot. When the officer knocked on Wigington's driver's side window, the officer reported Wigington attempted to open his door rather than roll down his window. When Wigington did roll down his window, the officer asked if he'd been drinking. Wigington responded no and said he had taken some prescription medications that morning. Something else that stood out here. Wigington struggled to get his driver's license and insurance card out of his wallet. The police officer wrote in the report and spoke with a mumbled, slow, deliberate manner, as if struggling to organize his thoughts. A second officer said he observed the smell of alcohol on Wigington's breath. In the report, officers wrote that Wigington was not able to keep a consistent story in their conversation with him. Wigington told the officers he was staying at the Holiday Inn in one instance, but said he was staying at the Country Hearth Inn before that. Something else that stood out here. According to the report, the officers asked Wigington if he'd been in a collision. Wigington told them he'd been in a minor fender bender earlier down the street at Wang Gang, a local Asian restaurant. He told the officers he went to Sonic because he had to get a hamburger, but that fast food restaurant was closed. You're free to go online and read these. I am not looking for any more trouble. I just want justice. I proved my case, and being that this information is in the news, I'm just asking that things will be reviewed and that I can have compensation that's due to me. I'm still feeling major effects of the illegal blacklisting in all areas of my life. So that urges me to keep seeking justice. I never try to make people believe as I do, but it helps me, the faith that I have. There's a scripture, all things work together for the good. It's in Romans 8:28, and it goes on, and it can relate to here. Here, August 2011, there was the Civil Rights Summit. And so here in 2019, you've got the individual who was leading the Civil Rights Summit, the U.S. Attorney, displaying this kind of behavior. So over and over, I'm just asking, you know, that my case be looked over and treated fairly. So this is the top law official for this was the top law official for the Southern District. He resigned in 2015. My letter, my June 17th, 2015 letter was taken by me to the strike lines of East St. Louis. And it exposed so very much about the discrimination that I had endured. And that October, this resignation came about. And these articles talk about the resignation. An investigation of the office of the U.S. Attorney began because of the environment there. So who wouldn't feel that, my case needs to be looked over and I should have compensation that I more than proved is due to me? So some other things that stood out here. It says, this is Wigginton's second DUI charge in 2 years. He pleaded guilty to a May 2017 incident where his car crashed through a fence off Interstate 55 and 70. This really stands out. Before being appointed as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Illinois by United States President Barack Obama, says U.S. President, Wigginton obtained a $5 million verdict against the Belleville Diocese in a civil case alleging sexual abuse of an altar boy by former priests, the Reverend, and it names the Reverend. In my June 17, 2015 letter, I shared a story, and that I wrote the President of the United States asking for help. I shared a story of behavior with students that should not have taken place at a facility, at a school that I was working at. This stood out, I've mentioned it already. Wigginton resigned as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Illinois in November 2015. So that's some highlights from the January 17, 2019 article. It's not easy printing documents. You may go on the court sites, but it's not easy to get the documents to print as they are displayed on the computer screen. So one court representative said that they knew this. So I've got some information. Doesn't appear as it does on the screen because you have to copy it and paste it. I tried to have it to show. This document shares a number of entries regarding that mentions the DUI. This is these are court records. this top half is part 2 of that same page that was on the computer screen, and it mentions the second DUI. So no, I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm not asking for any more trouble. It's just that I would love to have the compensation that I more than proved is due to me. And court systems, I said in one of my court documents that I took the more tolerable abuse from East St. Louis School District 189 because I did not want to again go through unfair court systems or anything. I once went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States regarding some sexual harassment and religious discrimination. So one of these documents mentions that the next court date is June 27th, 2019, where I have it highlighted here. So if anyone wants to kindly go and speak for me, maybe, you know, maybe the U.S. Attorney will make history in world news, as I've asked the 2 different pastors to do who are on the Financial Advisory Oversight Panel. As far as I know, they're still a part of it. So I asked them to make history in world news and tell the courts that they don't want the unfairness that they asked for and received in my case. So maybe all things will work together for the good for me, and maybe this U.S. attorney can do that. Say, hey, if we want a better America, a better world, let's start by, letting this Teresa Watson versus East St. Louis School District 189, et cetera, to be treated fairly. The EEOC investigator wanted to add that gentleman's that male's name to the case, and so she was a professional. So I said, hey, that's fine. Should have been even more names added, but I initially had just listed East St. Louis School District 189 and General Service Employees Local 382, and she decided to list the president and named him. So I'm just asking for love, peace and love. So it may be all that I have. It's once again, these articles are available for you to read. There's some things in the May 21st, 2019 one that stood out. Another internet article, once again, is May 21st, 2019. Another one is March 20th, 2019, related to the DUIs. So with him being the top law enforcement official for the state of, for the Southern District, I just hope that someone who is living a more safe lifestyle would help me. Once again, I'm a lifelong heterosexual female. I was not sexually attracted to the females or anyone else there, and my case was wrongfully terminated. Often now on TV, the world is changing, but I'm not the most perfect person, but I have respect for the scriptures, male, female, where I'm not supposed to be sexually attracted to females. So I hope that I can have compensation. Thank you for your time. Please reach out to me on Facebook, Teresa Watson. Remember, you will not see a photo, you'll see a document that says civil rights. I use that as my exhibit one. Thank you. Once again, it's June 18th, 2019, 5 years to the date of the wrongful dismissal of my case from the appellate court.